Ideas are easy to construct. I don't think they float about in an ether or an idea space. Some of them appear out of nowhere because their feelings are like two little animals are running and suddenly you've got a story out of that.
Action! Little Black Submarines is a 2024 indie feature film, which is the latest entry in the Chlorine cinematic universe. What's the Chlorine cinematic universe? Gloria must follow a series of clues leading to $500,000. As she follows the trail, she discovers she's not the only one searching for the money. So first of all, I want to say this is an immensely entertaining film and it kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. But I'm finding it difficult to review it. I can talk about how compelling the characters are, how the tension is increased by the cinematography really capturing the heat and the landscape and the world that this is occurring in, how the editing also works brilliantly to up that tension, and how there's a sequence in the middle that made my jaw hit the floor and then come back up into a big smile as I thought, I can't believe they're doing this and I can't believe it's working. But what I really want to talk about is how an audacious sequence like that can happen.
They have a way of making ideas.
During a recent live stream, the writer and director of Little Black Submarines, Jordan Ross, talked about how too many new filmmakers are influenced only by other films and how this is having a negative effect on cinema, a sentiment that I completely agree with, and which is why I find this film difficult to review properly.
It's The Smurfs meets Apocalypse Now, and that's a film.
Because this is a genuinely indie film, it hasn't been passed through the Hollywood system of balances and checks and algorithmic acid stripping until it's become a nice, sheeny, easy-to-digest piece of synthetic fast food, passed through a drive-through window to your home. And you can tell, because what that machine does and what that process does is reject any ideas that can't be easily summed up. And I'm not talking about plot here. I'm talking about the tone and feeling of ideas, and the feeling of ideas being policed to the point that the only writers that actually succeed are the ones who become accustomed to clamping ideas together like Lego. Like The Driver meets Pretty in Pink, or The Shining meets The Crucible, or Seven meets Batman, or Derek and Clive meets Hal Pinter.
Anybody want any crisps?
Actually, that last one probably wasn't pitched that way. I just mentioned it because I like it, and you should all watch it. But you get the picture. It's an easy way to make things that are already things that you can then sell in new shiny packaging. It's easier for execs to sell something that way, but easier for viewers to digest it that way, and easier for critics to reference the clamped notions. Clamped. And so that's where I come unstuck with Little Black Submarines. I'm watching it thinking, this feels like a real movie. You know, and I'm not saying the smaller, more personal films that I review here aren't real films. What this film feels like is the sort of film that I would enjoy in the cinema back when I left the house. Yeah, back in the mid-90s to the late 90s when I would go to the cinema like almost every weekend. We would see a film there and they had a certain feel to them and a certain prestige, I think. Yet I can't place a single film that it reminds me of. It's more a feeling, a scale, I don't know. Like the closest thing I can think of is Ghost Dog, I guess. That's what keeps coming to mind, even though I can't really even think of anything in either film that reminds me of either film. I guess they're both sort of crime films that don't conform to anything that's really happened before. You know, they're both crime films in which music plays an integral part of the tone, and they're both crime films which play by their own rules and feel totally natural doing it. Yeah, in a way, watching it reminded me of when I first started to study film. And I started looking closely at every detail of every creative decision I made and then seemingly learning them, and they felt new when I was doing that. And then I went back and watched a film that I'd made at like 13, 14, and it had all these technical aspects in there functioning perfectly well without me giving them any thought at all. And a lot of it actually worked better than films that I'd made decades later when I was like studying it that closely. And that's what LBS feels like. It feels like a film that's running on intuition and inherent creativity, gleaned from enjoying films rather than studying them, fused with personality and personal experience. Because this could so easily have gone the sort of Tarantino route where people, when they make a gangster film, it's because they've seen another gangster film, and what they end up replicating is something that was never real and never convinces. But this one feels like it comes from an organic and personal place because it comes from an organic and personal desire to express itself through the medium that it loves. And the lack of money hasn't restricted that creativity at all. The lack of money has challenged it and lost.
So you really need to get your money's worth out of this Uber ride, huh?
Yep.
And I think it's high time the film industry and film viewers realise that you can't just throw money at art and make it better. You need to actually encourage art that cares about itself. So go out and watch Little Black Submarines now. Link in the bio. I haven't got a funny ending for this video. I'm just going to press subscribe.